Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Sullivan Cade's truck ate up the miles of Texas highway, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. The Houston meeting had gone sideways, deals falling through, contracts unsigned, but that wasn't what had him on edge. It was the phone call from Tom at the office, casual words that hit like bullets. Weird thing, Sully. Some guy's been asking about your travel schedule. Real estate type, fancy suit. Said he was working with CC on a surprise for you. 15 years in the Marines had taught Sully to trust his gut. Right now, his gut was screaming he'd been watching his marriage unravel for months. Little things at first. Late nights at the office, new clothes, mysterious lunch meetings. Then bigger things, deleted text messages, hush phone calls, the growing distance in their bed. He'd wanted to believe it was just work stress, just the natural ebb and flow of a 3-year marriage. But that call from Tom had shattered those illusions. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the driveway as he pulled up to their 2-story colonial home. 3 days early from his business trip, he sat for a moment, letting the engine idle. A black Mercedes caught his eye, parked 2 houses down, expensive, new, with darkened windows. He'd never seen it in the neighborhood before. That he killed the engine, grabbed his duffel bag, and approached the house. Every step felt weighted with purpose, with the terrible certainty of what he would find. The discipline that had kept him alive through 3 tours in Afghanistan took over, turning his movements silent, precise. The house was too quiet when he stepped inside. No TV noise, no music from Cece's study where she usually worked on her real estate contracts. But her car was in the driveway, and her keys hung on the hook by the door, next to the framed photo from their wedding day. In it, they both smiled, young and hopeful. He'd thought they'd had forever. What a fool he'd been. Sully set his bag down without a sound, his boots ghosting across the hardwood floor. The living room told its own story. 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, one bearing the dark smudge of unfamiliar lipstick. Cece always wore pale pink. A man's jacket draped carelessly over the arm of the couch. The air carried the faint trace of expensive cologne. The master bedroom door was closed. As he approached, he heard a muffled laugh, then a man's voice, too low to make out the words. Cece's response, breathy and intimate, in a tone she once used only with him. Time slowed. His hand touched the doorknob, cool metal against his palm. In that moment, he knew exactly what he would find. The door opened silently on well-oiled hinges. The scene burned itself into his memory with crystal clarity. Cece in their bed, with a dark-haired man he'd never seen before. Expensive watch glinting on the stranger's wrist as it moved across his wife's bare skin. Wedding ring gleaming on Cece's finger as she ran her hands down another man's back. Neither of them noticed him standing in the doorway. Too lost in their betrayal, Sully didn't make a sound. Didn't move, just watched, his face a mask of stone, as his world shifted on its axis. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of building a life together. All of it meaningless. The floor creaked under his foot as he stepped back. Cece's head snapped up, her eyes going wide with horror as she saw him. The moment stretched between them like a blade. Sully. She scrambled to cover herself, pushing at her lover's chest. Oh God. I can explain. He turned and walked away, ignoring her desperate calls. Each step was measured, controlled. The rage building inside him was a cold thing, a predator waiting to strike. Sully, wait. Cece's voice followed him down the stairs, along with the sound of her rushing to throw on clothes. Please, just let me explain. He reached the front door as she came running down the stairs, wrapped in a robe, her normally perfect blonde hair disheveled. The man appeared behind her, hastily dressed, trying to look dignified despite the circumstances. Mr. Cade, the man started, extending his hand as if this were a business meeting. This is obviously an unfortunate situation. Sully's gaze cut through him like a blade, and the man's words died in his throat. Without speaking, Sully opened the front door and walked out. Where are you going? Cece called after him, her voice cracking. Sully, please, we need to talk about this. He got into his truck, started the engine, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, he could see Cece standing in the driveway, her robe fluttering in the breeze. She looked small, vulnerable. Once, that sight would have moved him to forgiveness, not anymore. The bar was called Eddie's, a dimly lit hole in the wall on the outskirts of town. Sully had discovered it years ago, back when he first started having doubts about his marriage. It was the kind of place where questions weren't asked and stories weren't shared. He claimed a corner booth, ordered whiskey, and pulled out his phone. The number he dialed wasn't in his contacts. He'd memorized it months ago. When his instincts first started warning him something was wrong, the line rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Bishop Raines speaking. Bishop, it's Sully. A pause. Brother, you sound like death warmed over. What's wrong? Remember that conversation we had about exit strategies? Another pause, longer this time. Yeah, I remember. Found something? Found them together. In our bed. Jesus Christ. Bishop's voice softened with genuine sympathy, then turned businesslike. What do you need? Everything we talked about. All of it. How fast can you move? Give me 12 hours to set things up. You still have that go bag I helped you prep? Yeah, good. Get it? Then meet me at the usual place. Midnight. We'll get you Ghost. The call ended, and Sully stared at his untouched whiskey. His phone buzzed with messages from Cece. Please come home. We can work this out. I made a mistake. I love you. He deleted them all without reading past the first lines. The last one came as he was finishing his drink. You're being childish. We need to talk about this like adults. That was Cece always trying to control the narrative, to reshape reality to suit her needs. He turned off the phone and dropped it in the bar's dumpster on his way out. The storage facility was on the edge of town, registered under a false name. Another precaution he'd taken months ago when the doubts started creeping in. The unit was climate-controlled, clean, organized with military precision. Inside, he found everything he needed. Cash in various denominations, burner phones, laptop, new ID documents. All Bishop's work, all pristine. As he loaded the go bag into his truck, memories ambushed him. Cece on their first date, laughing at his terrible jokes. The way she'd looked walking down the aisle, so beautiful it hurt. Their honeymoon in Cabo, her skin golden in the sunset. He pushed the memories away. They were poisoned now, tainted by the knowledge that even then, she'd probably been calculating, manipulating, seeing him as nothing more than a stepping stone to something better. Precisely midnight. He pulled into the parking lot of an abandoned warehouse outside the city limits. Bishop's black SUV was already there, idling in the shadows. Sully parked next to it and got out. Go bag in hand, Bishop Raines stepped out of the SUV, his massive frame blocking the security light behind him. Despite the late hour, he was dressed in an impeccable suit, his dark skin gleaming in the dim light. The former con artist turned security specialist looked Sully up and down with practiced eyes. You look like shit, Bishop said by way of greeting. Feel worse. Yeah, well, being betrayed'll do that to you. Bishop opened the SUV's rear door. Come on, let's talk business. Inside the SUV, Bishop had set up a mobile office, laptop, portable printer, several phones. The screens cast a blue glow across his features as he pulled up a series of documents. Here's where we stand, Bishop said, typing rapidly. I've been monitoring your accounts like you asked. Joint ones with CC, personal accounts, everything. The good news is, we can move fast enough to empty them all before she knows what's happening. The bad news? Once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be burning every bridge you've got. Do it? Bishop's fingers flew across the keyboard. Already started the transfers. By morning, everything will be in untraceable accounts across 3 continents. What about the house? Let her have it. Sully's voice was flat. I don't want anything that reminds me of her. Smart man. Bishop handed him a stack of documents and a new phone. Here's your new life. Driver's license, birth certificate, social security card, all pristine work. Will pass any check. The phone's secure, untraceable. Only I have the number. Sully examined the documents under the dim light. James Cooper, originally from Idaho, moved around a lot due to construction work. Simple backstory, easy to remember, hard to verify. I've already set up accounts and a credit history. By tomorrow morning, James Cooper will have existed for the past 30 years. What about Cece? She'll look for me. Bishop's expression hardened. Let her. By sunrise, Sullivan Cade will have vanished completely. No trail, no traces. She can hire every private investigator in Texas. They won't find anything. She's resourceful and stubborn. Yeah, well, so am I. Bishop handed him a sealed envelope. Inside is an address in Nevada. Place is yours, bought and paid for under your new name. Previous owner was a client of mine, owed me a favor. It's a bar, nothing fancy, but it's legitimate business cover and a good place to lay low. They spent the next 2 hours going over details, accessing the hidden accounts, emergency contacts, backup plans. Bishop had thought of everything. New credit cards, business licenses, even a complete tax history for James Cooper. One more thing, Bishop said as Sully prepared to leave. Guy she was with. Want me to find out who he is? Sully paused, his hand on the door. Yeah, but don't do anything. Just watch. I want to know everything about him. You got it. Bishop extended his hand. Take care of yourself, brother. Stay ghost until you hear from me. Outside, a new vehicle waited. A nondescript gray SUV with Nevada plates. Sully transferred his go bag, then watched as Bishop drove away, taking the last traces of Sullivan Cade with him. The drive west was a blur of highways and truck stops, cheap coffee, and endless desert. He crossed state lines like a man shedding skin, each mile putting more distance between him and his old life. By the time he reached Nevada, the sun was setting on his second day of driving. The bar Bishop had arranged for him sat on the outskirts of a small town outside Las Vegas, a plain building with a weathered sign reading Cooper's Place. The bar was everything Bishop had promised, unremarkable on the surface, but solid. The main room was clean but basic. Long wooden bar, scattered tables, pool table in the corner. The apartment upstairs was similarly Spartan, but it would serve his needs over the next 3 years. Sully, now James Cooper, built his new life with methodical precision. During the day, he ran the bar competently, but quietly, becoming known as a man who minded his own business and expected others to do the same. The locals learned quickly not to ask about his past. You military? A regular named Mike asked one night, early in his first year. What makes you say that? Way you carry yourself. Way. You're always aware of who's coming and going. Sully just nodded and poured another drink. After that, the regulars seemed to accept him as one of their own, a man with a past he didn't discuss, but the days were just cover for his real work. Every night, after closing, he trained. The apartment spare room became a command center: computers, surveillance equipment, everything he needed to stay informed. Bishop's monthly reports kept him updated on Cece's new life, on the man she'd been with that day, Rhett Calloway, a real estate mogul whose legitimate business barely concealed his criminal enterprises that he watched from afar as Cece married Calloway less than a year after his disappearance. The society pages showed them at charity galas, political fundraisers, all the places Cece had always wanted to be. She looked happy in the photos, glamorous and polished. But Sully could see the strain around her eyes, the slight tension in her smile. She was running from something. His own transformation was slower, more deliberate. He spent hours in the makeshift gym he'd built in the bar's basement, pushing his body past its limits. He studied financial systems, computer security, the web of shell companies that made up Calloway's empire. Every piece of information was a potential weapon, stored away for future use. The regulars noticed the changes, though they never commented directly. You seem different lately, Teresa, his longtime bartender, said one night. More focused. Just keeping busy. She gave him a long look. You're waiting for something? He didn't answer, but she wasn't wrong. Every day was preparation for a reckoning he knew would come. He just didn't know when until one quiet Tuesday night, as he was closing the bar, his secure phone buzzed. Bishop's number. We've got a problem, Bishop said without preamble. Someone's looking for Sullivan Cade, and they're getting close. Sully's hand tightened on the phone. Who? Calloway's people. Seems your ex-wife's new husband has some questions about where his money went. His money? Yeah. Bishop's voice was grim. Turns out he was the one funding your disappearance through some shell companies I didn't catch. Now he wants it back, with interest. And brother? He's not asking nicely. Sully absorbed this information in silence. 3 years of preparation crystallized into a single moment of clarity. Finally, he spoke. Let them come. You sure about that? We could move you again, set up somewhere new. No. A cold smile crossed his face. I've been waiting 3 years for a reason to go back. Looks like I just found it. He ended the call and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet Nevada street. In the reflection, he barely recognized himself. The man in the glass was leaner, harder, his eyes carrying a darkness that hadn't been there 3 years ago. The time for hiding was over. Now it was time to hunt. The Texas heat hit Sully like a hammer as he stepped off the private plane Bishop had arranged. 3 years of Nevada desert hadn't prepared him for the thick summer air of his old hunting grounds. He adjusted the leather briefcase in his grip inside. Everything he needed to start dismantling Rhett Calloway's empire. Bishop waited by a black SUV on the tarmac, still wearing his signature tailored suit despite the heat. His broad smile didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome home, brother," Bishop said, extending his hand. "Though I guess it's not really home anymore, is it? Just another battlefield." Sully's grip was firm. "What's the situation? Let's talk inside. You've stirred up one hell of a hornet's nest." Inside the SUV's air-conditioned interior, Bishop pulled out a tablet. "Calloway's been busy. He's got people turning over every rock in Nevada looking for you. Professional hunters, ex-military types. Let them look. James Cooper's already gone." "Yeah, about that." Bishop's expression turned serious. "There's something you need to know. That money we took 3 years ago? Turns out it wasn't just your accounts we emptied." Sully leaned forward. "Explain." "Calloway had been moving money through your joint accounts with Cece, using your marriage as cover for some of his less legitimate operations. When we cleaned everything out, we didn't just take your money. We took a significant chunk of his illegal funds, too." "How much?" "About $12 million. He's been trying to track it ever since, but I buried it deep." Bishop paused. "There's more. They're not just looking for the money now. They filed fraud charges against Sullivan Cade. Got the FBI involved." Sully's laugh was cold. "Fraud charges? That's the best they could do. It's just the opening move. Calloway's trying to smoke you out, force you to surface. But here's where it gets interesting." Bishop swiped through several documents on the tablet. "Look who signed the complaint." The signature at the bottom of the legal document made Sully's jaw tighten. "Celeste Calloway, formerly Celeste Cade." "Cece. She's playing her part well," Sully said, his voice flat. "Yeah, well, she's good at playing parts. But I've been watching her. She's scared, Sully. Really scared. Whatever game Calloway's playing, she's in over her head. Not my problem." Bishop studied him for a moment. "You sure about that? Because we could just walk away. Start fresh somewhere else." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Sully's voice cut like steel. "You have the information I asked for?" Bishop nodded and handed over a thick file. "Everything you need to start taking Calloway apart. Financial records, business connections, dirty deals, everything. But listen, brother. This guy, he's not just some rich businessman playing gangster. He's the real deal. People who cross him tend to disappear. Good thing I'm already a ghost then." Sully opened the file, scanning the contents. "Tell me about his operation." "He uses his real estate business as a front. Luxury developments, shopping centers, office buildings, all legitimate on the surface. But underneath? Money laundering, protection rackets, political corruption. He's got half the city officials in his pocket, and the other half too scared to move against him. Weaknesses? His ego. Man loves to show off his power, loves to humiliate his enemies publicly. And he's got a temper, especially when it comes to money." Sully nodded, processing the information. "What about his connection to the IRS case I leaked? That's where it gets good." Bishop's smile turned predatory. "Your anonymous tip hit pay dirt. IRS has frozen most of his legitimate accounts pending investigation. He's burning through cash reserves just keeping his operation running." "Perfect." Sully closed the file. "Time to increase the pressure. You have the documents I asked for?" Bishop reached into his briefcase and pulled out a USB drive. "Everything you need to trigger an SEC investigation into his development projects. But Sully, once we do this, there's no going back. He'll come at you with everything he's got." "Good. I want him angry. Angry people make mistakes." Sully pocketed the drive. What's my cover? James Cooper, private investigator from Nevada, looking into some of Calloway's business dealings for a client. All the credentials are solid. Bishop's work was always perfect. You sure about this timeline? Moving this fast could spook him. Sully's expression hardened. I've waited 3 years. That's long enough. Where's he staying? Penthouse at the Grand Meridian. Top floor, private elevator, security everywhere. Man's paranoid. He should be. Sully checked his watch. Time to make our first move. You have the meeting set up? Yeah, though I still think it's risky. Walking right into his territory. That's exactly why we're doing it. He'll never expect it. Sully's smile was cold. Besides, I want to see his face when he realizes who's hunting him. The SUV pulled up to a stoplight, and through the tinted windows, Sully caught a glimpse of a billboard advertising Calloway developments. Rhett Calloway's face smiled down at the city, confident and arrogant. Soon that smile would vanish. One more thing, Bishop said as they turned toward downtown. Your old friend Lorelei Knox has been asking questions. Says she might have information about Calloway's operation. Sully's expression didn't change, but his grip on the briefcase tightened slightly. Lori had been one of the few people he'd trusted back then, owner of the bar where he'd first met Cece. She's still running McCabe's? Yeah, place is doing well. She's managed to stay neutral in all the local power plays, but she hears things. Might be worth talking to her. Sully nodded slowly. Set it up, but quietly. I don't want Calloway's people knowing about that connection yet. The SUV pulled into the underground parking garage of the Grand Meridian. As they stepped out, Bishop grabbed Sully's arm. Brother, whatever happens up there, remember the plan. Don't let him bait you into something stupid. Sully checked his weapon, concealed perfectly under his suit jacket. The plan is already in motion. By the time Calloway realizes what's happening, it'll be too late to stop it. The private elevator required a keycard, but Bishop had already handled that detail. As they rode up to the penthouse level, Sully thought about the last 3 years. Every day of training, every piece of intelligence gathered, every move calculated for this moment, the elevator doors opened to reveal a sleek reception area. 2 security guards looked up from their desk, hands moving instinctively toward their weapons. James Cooper, Sully announced smoothly. I have an appointment with Mr. Calloway. The security guards exchanged glances before the taller one picked up his phone. After a brief conversation, he nodded. Mr. Calloway, we'll see you now. Through those doors, into the hall. Sully could feel their eyes on him as he and Bishop walked past. The penthouse hallway opened into a vast living space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Rhett Calloway stood at the window, drink in hand, exactly as Sully remembered him from that day 3 years ago. Mr. Cooper. Calloway turned, his smile practiced and hollow. I must admit, I was intrigued by your request for a meeting. It's not often someone has the audacity to walk right into my home and accuse me of financial irregularities. Not an accusation, Mr. Calloway. Just some questions about certain transactions that caught my client's attention. Sully set his briefcase on the glass coffee table, particularly those involving Sullivan Cade. Calloway's smile tightened slightly. The Cade situation. An unfortunate business that man turned out to be nothing but a common thief. Interesting perspective. Sully opened his briefcase, removed a file. Especially considering the money he allegedly stole was never legally yours to begin with. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Calloway set his drink down carefully. You're treading on dangerous ground, Mr. Cooper. Am I? Because according to these records, you were using the Cade's joint accounts to launder money through your development projects. When Sullivan Cade disappeared with those funds, he didn't just take his money. He took your illegal profits too. Where did you get those documents? Calloway's voice had lost its smooth polish. Same place I got these. Sully pulled out another file. Records of bribes to city officials, offshore accounts, shell companies. Enough to trigger a full federal investigation. Calloway laughed, but there was no humor in it. You have no idea what you're dealing with, do you? Do you know how many private investigators have tried to build cases against me? How many ambitious lawyers? Would you like to know what happened to them? I know exactly what happened to them. Sully's voice remained calm. The question is, do you know what's about to happen to you? The door opened, and Harlan Maddox entered, Cece's older brother and Calloway's chief enforcer. He was bigger than Sully remembered, his expensive suit barely containing his muscled frame. "Everything all right, Rhett?" Harlan's hand rested casually near his concealed weapon. "Mr. Cooper here was just leaving." Calloway's smile had turned predatory. "After he hands over those files, of course." "I don't think so." Sully stood, gathering his documents. "But don't worry, the SEC and FBI already have copies. Consider this meeting a professional courtesy. A chance for you to start preparing your defense. You're making a serious mistake." Harlan stepped forward, but Bishop moved to intercept him, his massive frame blocking the enforcer's path. "The mistake," Sully said, closing his briefcase, "was thinking you could hide your operation forever. The investigations are already in motion. By this time tomorrow, your accounts will be frozen, your projects halted, and your investors running for cover." Calloway's facade cracked. "Who are you really?" "Just someone interested in justice, Mr. Calloway." Sully headed for the door, Bishop backing up with him. "You should ask your wife about that. After all, she knows better than anyone how karma works." They were almost to the elevator when Calloway's voice stopped them. "Whatever they're paying you, I'll double it." Sully turned back. "Not everything's about money, Mr. Calloway. Sometimes it's about sending a message." The elevator doors closed on Calloway's thunderous expression. As they descended, Bishop let out a low whistle. "Damn, brother. You really know how to make friends." "That's just the opening move." Sully checked his phone. The SEC filing should hit their system in about an hour. By morning, his whole empire will be under scrutiny. He's going to come after you hard. I'm counting on it. They exited through the parking garage, taking a different vehicle than the one they'd arrived in, one of many precautions Bishop had arranged. "Next stop?" Bishop asked as they merged into traffic. "McCabe's bar. Time to talk to Lori." The drive to McCabe's took them through the older part of town, past buildings Calloway hadn't yet seized for his developments. The bar looked exactly as Sully remembered it: red brick exterior, neon beer signs in the windows, the kind of place that had survived decades by knowing its customers and minding its own business. "Wanted to go in first?" Bishop offered. "No. Some conversations need to happen face to face." Inside, the afternoon crowd was thin. A few regulars at the bar, a couple of tables occupied by office workers escaping early. Behind the bar, Lorelei Knox looked up as they entered. Her eyes widened slightly, but she gave no other sign of recognition. "What can I get you, gentlemen?" Her voice was steady, professional. "Whiskey neat?" Sully took a seat at the bar. "And maybe some information about Rhett Calloway." Lori's hand paused in reaching for the bottle. She studied him for a long moment, then poured his drink. "Haven't heard that name in a while." She set the glass in front of him. "Not since an old friend disappeared a few years back. Maybe it's time to talk about both." She glanced around the bar, then nodded toward a door marked private. "My office. 5 minutes." The back office was small but neat, filing cabinets lining one wall, a desk covered in invoices and receipts. Lori closed the door behind them and turned to face Sully. "You look different," she said quietly. 3 years will do that. You should have told me you were leaving. I could have helped. Couldn't risk it. The less anyone knew, the safer they were." She moved behind her desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a thick envelope. "I've been keeping records. Every time Calloway's people come in here, every conversation I overhear, every deal that goes down in my bar. Figured someday someone would need it." "Why?" Sully asked, taking the envelope. "Because what he did to you and Cece. That wasn't right. And because he's destroying this neighborhood, piece by piece. Small businesses are closing. People are being forced out. Someone needs to stop him. That's the plan." She studied him for a moment. "You're not just here for revenge, are you? This is bigger than that. It's about justice, and making sure he can't do this to anyone else." Lori nodded slowly. "Be careful, Sully. Calloway's dangerous, but he's not the only threat. Cece's been in here a few times, asking questions about you. She's different now, harder, more desperate. She made her choice. Maybe. Or maybe she's trapped in something she can't escape." Lori reached for his arm. "Just watch your back. And if you need anything, I know where to find you." He turned to leave, then paused. "Thank you, Lori, for everything." Back in the car, Bishop was waiting with news. SEC filing just went through. It's already hitting the financial news sites. Callaway Development stock is starting to drop. Sully nodded, opening the envelope Lori had given him. Inside were detailed notes, dates, names, a gold mine of intelligence on Callaway's operation. He'll try to contain it, Sully said, scanning the documents. Call in favors, pressure regulators, threaten witnesses. That's not all. Bishop handed him his phone. Just got word from my contact in Callaway's office. He's called an emergency meeting with all his lieutenants, including Harlan Maddox. Good. Let them scramble. Sully's expression was grim. While they're focused on the SEC investigation, we'll hit them where it really hurts. The construction projects? Every single one. By the time we're done, he won't have a single clean development left in his portfolio. Bishop whistled low. That's going to cost him millions. That's the point. Take away his money, you take away his power. Sully looked out at the city, sliding past. And then we'll see what kind of man Rhett Callaway really is. What about Cece? She'll show her hand soon enough. People like her always do. The sun was setting over Texas, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. Somewhere in that glittering cityscape, alarms were going off in Callaway's empire. Phones were ringing, emails were flying, and the careful facades were beginning to crack. The war had begun. The morning headlines hit like bombs across the city's financial district. SEC launches investigation into Callaway Developments. Federal probe targets Texas real estate empire. Callaway stock plummets amid fraud allegations. Sully read them from the safety of his hotel suite, watching the chaos unfold through Bishop's network of informants. Reports were coming in every few minutes. Callaway's investors pulling out, construction projects grinding to a halt, banks freezing credit lines. You need to see this, Bishop said, entering the room with his laptop. He pulled up a video feed from a local news station. Harlan Maddox was shoving his way through a crowd of reporters outside Callaway Tower, his face twisted with rage. No comment. Mr. Callaway denies all allegations of wrongdoing. These baseless accusations. He grabbed a reporter's microphone, crushing it in his massive fist. Get those cameras out of my face. Looks like someone's feeling the pressure, Sully observed. Bishop's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. That was my contact at the sheriff's department. Holden Griggs is making moves. He's ordered his deputies to start checking into your alias. Right on schedule. Sully stood, straightening his tie. Time to pay the sheriff a visit. You sure that's wise? Man's got a reputation for being unpredictable. That's exactly why we're going. Unpredictable men are easier to manipulate. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office occupied an aging building on the outskirts of town. Sheriff Holden Griggs's office was on the second floor, overlooking the parking lot where his deputies' cruisers gleamed in the Texas sun. Sheriff Griggs. Sully walked in without knocking. We need to talk. Griggs looked up from his desk, his weathered face showing no surprise. He was older than Sully remembered, gray creeping into his temples, but his eyes were sharp as ever. Well, James Cooper in the flesh. Griggs leaned back in his chair. Been wondering when you'd show up. Though that's not your real name, is it? Names aren't important. What's important is what I know about your arrangement with Rhett Callaway. Griggs's hand moved slightly toward his desk drawer. Careful, son. Making accusations against a law enforcement officer. Save it. Sully tossed a file onto the desk. Bank records showing monthly payments from Callaway's shell companies to your offshore account. Surveillance photos of you meeting his bagmen. Phone records, text messages, everything the FBI would need to end your career and start your prison sentence. You son of a bitch. Griggs's face flushed red. You have any idea what Callaway will do to you when he finds out you've been skimming extra from those protection payments? Taking bribes from his competitors? Sully smiled coldly. Yes, I know exactly what he'll do. Unless what? Unless you start working for me instead. Griggs barked out a harsh laugh. You're insane. Callaway owns this county. Not for long. Sully leaned forward. The SEC investigation is just the beginning. By the time I'm done, Callaway's empire will be ashes. You can either go down with him, or you can help me make sure he falls harder. The sheriff studied him for a long moment, wheels turning behind his eyes. Finally, he asked, what do you want? Information. Access. And when the time comes, I want you to look the other way. That's all. For now. Sully stood. I'll be in touch with specific instructions. In the meantime, call off your deputies. James Cooper's background checks will come back clean. How do I know you won't turn over those files anyway? Because unlike Calloway, I keep my word. Sully headed for the door. But cross me, and those files go to every news outlet and federal agency in Texas. Your choice. Outside, Bishop was waiting in the car. How'd it go? We own him now. Sully checked his phone. Any word on Harlan? Yeah, and you're not going to like it. He's headed to McCabe's. Sully's jaw tightened. Lori, want me to handle it? No. This needs a personal touch. McCabe's was closed when they arrived, the afternoon sun casting long shadows through the windows. But Harlan's black SUV was parked out front, and raised voices could be heard from inside. I'm only going to ask one more time. Harlan's voice carried through the door. Where is he? And I'll tell you one more time. Lori's voice was steady, defiant. I don't know what you're talking about. Sully entered silently, Bishop right behind him. Harlan had Lori backed against the bar, his massive frame looming over her. Two of his men stood near the door, hands under their jackets. That's no way to treat a lady, Harlan. Maddox spun around, his face twisting with recognition. You me? Sully's voice was casual, but his eyes were cold. Step away from her. Well, the ghost himself. Harlan's laugh was ugly. You've caused my brother-in-law a lot of problems. That was the plan. You know what I'm going to do to you. Harlan took a step forward. What I'm going to do to anyone who helped you. Actually, I know exactly what you're going to do. Sully didn't move. You're going to walk out of here, get in your car, and drive away. Because if you don't, the next files I release will be about you. You don't have anything on me. The gambling debts in Vegas? The witnesses you've buried? The money you've been stealing from your own sister? Sully smiled. I have everything, Harlan. Every dirty secret, every crime, every betrayal. You're bluffing. Third race at Santa Anita, 2 months ago. You lost 50 grand of Calloway's money betting on a fixed race. But the fix didn't work, did it? That's why you had to borrow from the Mexicans. How much do you owe them now? The color drained from Harlan's face. Walk away, Sully said softly. While you still can. For a moment, violence hung in the air like static before a storm. Then Harlan stepped back. This isn't over. No, it's not. But the next time you come near Lori or this bar, it will be. For you? They watched as Harlan and his men retreated to their SUV. Once they were gone, Lori let out a shaky breath. You okay? Sully asked. Yeah. She straightened up, steel returning to her spine. But you shouldn't have done that. He'll be back with more men. No, he won't. Bishop spoke up. Man's a coward at heart. Always has been. Besides, Sully added, he's got bigger problems now. Those gambling debts I mentioned? Anonymous tips are already flying to Calloway's accounts. By morning, Harlan's own sister will be calling for his head. Lori studied him. You've changed, Sully. The man I knew 3 years ago. That man died the day his wife betrayed him. He turned to leave, then paused. Lock up tight tonight. Things are about to get worse in this city. Back in the car, Bishop pulled up more updates on his tablet. Calloway's scrambling. He's called in every favor he has, trying to stop the SEC investigation. But it's not working. Too many eyes on him now. Good. Time for the next phase. Sully stared out at the darkening city. Call our friend at the DA's office. Tell him he'll find some interesting documents about Calloway's construction permits in tomorrow's mail. You're not giving him any breathing room, are you? He doesn't deserve any. Sully's phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. He opened it to find a photo of Cece, taken that afternoon. She was leaving her lawyer's office, looking stressed and afraid. She's running scared, Bishop observed. She should be. Sully deleted the photo. Everything she helped build is about to come crashing down. The city lights were coming on, turning the streets into rivers of neon and shadow. Somewhere out there, Calloway was plotting his counterattack. But Sully had spent 3 years preparing for this war. He had contingencies for every move, counters for every strategy. The game was in motion, and there would be no mercy for the losers. The message came through one of Bishop's secure channels. A meeting request from Calloway. Time, place, terms all carefully laid out like bait in a trap. It's too clean, Bishop said, examining the message on his laptop. They were in their temporary command center, a suite at the Four Seasons paid for with untraceable funds. He's trying to lure you out. Of course he is. Sully studied the city through the window. That's exactly why we're going to accept. Brother, think about this. He's desperate. SEC breathing down his neck, investors pulling out, his lieutenant compromised. Man like that's capable of anything. I'm counting on it. Sully turned from the window. What's the location? Abandoned construction site, one of his stalled projects. Midnight tonight. Bishop's expression was grim. He specified you come alone. Perfect. Sully, trust me, Bishop. Everything's proceeding exactly as planned. The construction site loomed against the night sky, skeletal and unfinished. Steel beams reached up like desperate fingers, and plastic sheets fluttered in the wind like ghosts. Sully drove past it once, noting the positions of Calloway's men too in the parking lot. 3 more on the upper levels, all trying to look inconspicuous and failing that he parked a block away and checked his equipment one last time. The pistol under his jacket was just insurance this fight wouldn't be won with bullets. In position, Bishop's voice came through his earpiece, barely a whisper. Surveillance? Everything's hot. Audio and video covering the whole site. Whatever goes down, we'll have it recorded. Good. Sully started walking toward the site. Remember, no matter what happens, stick to the plan. The guards in the parking lot tried to look tough as they patted him down. They found the gun, as expected, and took it. They didn't find the small recording device sewn into his jacket collar, or the tracking chip in his watch. Top floor, one of them grunted. Boss is waiting. The service elevator was out of order, probably deliberately, so Sully took the stairs. Each floor showed signs of rushed construction halted mid-project. Exposed wiring, stacked materials, tools abandoned. When the SSC freeze hit, Calloway waited on the top floor, in what would have been a luxury penthouse suite. Plastic sheets divided the space into rough rooms, and portable lights cast harsh shadows. He wasn't alone. Harlan stood to his right, trying to hide his nervousness behind a tough facade. And there, by the window, was Cece. She looked different than she had in the society photos. Thinner, harder, the polished socialite mask cracking at the edges. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw him, recognition flickering before she caught herself. Mr. Cooper. Calloway's voice was smooth, controlled. Or should I say, Mr. Cade? You can say whatever you like. Sully moved to the center of the room, positioning himself exactly where he wanted to be. I assume this meeting has a point? Several. Actually, Calloway gestured to one of his men, who brought forward a briefcase. First, to make you an offer. $20 million. Cash, untraceable. Walk away. Forget everything you know. Disappear for real this time. Not interested. Don't be hasty. Calloway's smile didn't reach his eyes. That's more than twice what you took 3 years ago. This was never about money. No. Calloway's facade cracked slightly. Then what is it about? Revenge? Justice? Or is it something more personal? He glanced at Cece. Something to do with my lovely wife, perhaps? This is about consequences, Mr. Calloway. Something you're not used to facing. Consequences? Calloway laughed, but there was an edge of desperation in it. Look around you. You're alone, outnumbered in my territory. The only consequences tonight will be yours. You really believe that, don't you? Sully smiled coldly. That's why you're going to lose everything. Enough. Harlan stepped forward, pulls his gun. Let's end this now. Put it away. Calloway snapped. This isn't the time. The hell it isn't. He's destroying everything we built. Built? Sully's laugh was bitter. You mean stole? Extorted? Corrupted? I've seen your records, remember? Every dirty deal, every bribed official, every ruined life. You don't understand. Cece spoke up suddenly. You don't know what you're dealing with. I understand perfectly. Sully turned to her, and she flinched at his gaze. You traded up, didn't you? Found someone with more power, more money. How's that working out for you? That's enough. Calloway's voice turned hard. Last chance, Cade. Take the money, or what? You'll kill me? Make me disappear like all your other problems? Sully spread his arms. Go ahead. But first, you might want to check your phone. Breaking news should be hitting any minute now. As if on cue, phones started buzzing throughout the room. Calloway pulled his out, face darkening as he read. What did you do? Me? Nothing. But it seems someone sent a very detailed dossier to the FBI. Bank records, meeting transcripts, video evidence, everything they need to bring down your entire operation. And look, they're already serving warrants at your other properties. You're bluffing. Check your security feeds. Harlan was already on his phone. Red FBI's at the marina. They're seizing the boats. Downtown office, too. Another guard reported. SWAT team just went in. This is impossible, Calloway snarled. I would have known. You didn't know because you were too focused on me. Sully's voice was calm. While you were setting this trap, I was springing mine. Every account, every property, every corrupt official in your pocket, it's all exposed now. CC stepped forward. Sully, please. You don't have to do this. Actually, I do. And the best part? He looked directly at Calloway. This meeting is being recorded. Everything you've said, every threat, every attempt to buy me off, the FBI will have it all within the hour. The room erupted into chaos. Harlan raised his gun, but Calloway knocked his arm down. No, we need him alive. He's the only one who can stop this. Too late. Sully started backing toward the stairs. It was always too late. Kill him. Harlan roared. Raising his gun again, the windows exploded inward as FBI tactical teams rappelled into the room. More agents burst through the stairwell door. In seconds, the space was filled with shouts and the metallic sound of handcuffs clicking shut. Federal agents. Everyone on the ground. Sully watched as Calloway's empire crumbled around him. The mighty real estate mogul, now being read his rights. Harlan, face bloody from resisting arrest. And Cece, silent tears running down her face as an agent led her away. Mr. Cade, a senior FBI agent, approached him. Thank you for your cooperation. Your testimony will be invaluable in building our case. Testimony? Calloway's head snapped up. You're working with him? Like I said, Sully met his eyes one last time. Consequences. Outside, Bishop was waiting in their car, grinning broadly. Damn, brother. That was something else. Timing the FBI raids perfectly with your meeting? Masterful. They did all the real work. We just had to lead them to the evidence. Sully watched as police cars and FBI vehicles filled the street, lights painting the night in red and blue. What about the offshore accounts? Already frozen. Between the SEC investigation and the FBI raids, Calloway's entire financial network is locked down. Man's not just ruined, he's finished. Sully nodded, feeling no satisfaction, only a cold sense of justice served. And Cece? She'll be charged too. Maybe not as heavily as Calloway, but she's not walking away from this. They drove through the city, watching as news of Calloway's fall spread like wildfire. By morning, the empire he'd built through corruption and fear would be ashes. Where to now? Bishop asked. One last piece of business to handle. Sully checked his watch. Time to make sure none of this can ever happen again. The Federal Detention Center loomed against the morning sky, a concrete fortress holding the remains of Calloway's empire. Through the reinforced windows, Sully watched Cece pacing in the interview room. Her prison orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the designer clothes she'd worn just days ago. You were right, Bishop said, reviewing the surveillance transcripts. She's been planning this for months. Listen to this call from 3 weeks ago. He played the recording. Cece's voice came through clear and calculated. I need insurance. When this falls apart, and it will fall apart, I want guaranteed protection. Full immunity, new identity, everything. You get me that, I'll give you Rhett's entire operation. Federal prosecutor she was talking to? Sully asked. Marcus Davidson. Real ambitious type. Thinks taking down Calloway will make his career. Send him the evidence. Bishop raised an eyebrow. All of it? Even the parts that implicate her? Especially those parts. Sully checked his watch. Her meeting with Davidson starts in 20 minutes. Time to show everyone who Celeste Calloway really is. The evidence was damning. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, recorded meetings with cartel members. 3 years of meticulous documentation, showing Cece hadn't just been Calloway's wife. She'd been an architect of his criminal empire. They watched through the observation window as Davidson reviewed the files. Cece's face crumbled as she realized her escape route was disappearing. "This is a mistake," she pleaded. "Those documents are fake." "The surveillance videos aren't fake, Mrs. Calloway." Davidson's voice was cold. "Neither are the witness statements or the recorded conversations with Mr. Ramirez about laundering cartel money. I was forced. Rhett made me." December 15th, 3 years ago, Sully stepped into the room. "Plaza Hotel. You told Ramirez, and I quote, 'My husband thinks too small. With your resources and my connections, we could double the operation within 6 months.'" The color drained from her face. "Sully, your own words, Cece. Your own plans. No one forced you into anything. You don't understand." She stood, chains rattling. "I had to survive. After you left. After I left." His laugh was harsh. "You were running schemes before I caught you with Calloway. The affair was just your way of trading up to a bigger operation." Davidson gathered the files. "Mrs. Calloway, in light of this new evidence, I'm withdrawing our immunity offer. Guards, please return the prisoner to her cell." "No, wait." She lunged forward, but the guards caught her arms. "Sully, please. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you." His voice was ice. "Your choices, your consequences." Outside, Bishop was coordinating with their network of informants. Word spreading through the detention center. "Calloway just found out about Cece's attempted deal." "How'd he take it?" "Exactly like you predicted. He's demanding to see her." Guards had to restrain him. Sully nodded. "Make sure Davidson gets the recording of his reaction. Let him hear exactly what Calloway plans to do to his wife when he gets his hands on her." "Already done. But brother, you should hear this too." Bishop played another surveillance clip. Calloway's voice, raw with rage. "That treacherous bitch. She thinks she can sell me out? I'll kill her myself. I'll destroy everything she loves." "Perfect." Sully checked his phone. "What about Harlan?" "Meeting with federal prosecutors right now. Offering to testify against both of them in exchange for witness protection. Send them the evidence of his gambling debts and the witness statements about the murders. You want to burn everyone, don't you?" They burned themselves. Sully watched as more FBI agents entered the detention center, carrying boxes of evidence. "I'm just making sure the fire spreads evenly." The day progressed like a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction. Every hour brought new revelations, new betrayals, new evidence of crimes even Sully hadn't known about. Calloway's remaining allies abandoned him as federal indictments spread like wildfire through his organization. "Impressive work," a senior FBI agent commented, reviewing the case files. "We've been trying to build a case against Calloway for years. Never could get enough evidence. Amazing what people will reveal when they think no one's watching." Sully turned to leave, but the agent called after him. "Mr. Cade, there's still the matter of your own involvement. The money you took was legally mine. Check the account records. Every dollar came from my personal funds or joint accounts with my ex-wife. What happened to Calloway's illegal deposits after I withdrew my money?" He shrugged. "Not my concern." By evening, the detention center was a hurricane of activity. Prosecutors interviewing witnesses, federal agents cataloging evidence, reporters gathering outside for any scrap of news about the fallen empire. "We've got movement," Bishop reported. "Calloway's trying to arrange a transfer to another facility. Claims he's not safe here." "Of course he's not." Sully smiled coldly. "His wife's betrayal is public now. Every inmate knows he's been played for a fool. Want me to block the transfer?" "No. Let him think he's found an escape route. It'll make what comes next even sweeter." They watched the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. Somewhere in the detention center, Cece was alone in her cell, realizing that her manipulations had finally failed her. Calloway was plotting his escape, not knowing he was walking into a trap. And Harlan was discovering that no deal would save him from his past. The war was entering its final phase, and Sully had saved his deadliest weapons for last. The prison transport van left the detention center at midnight, supposedly carrying Rhett Calloway to a secure federal facility. Two armed guards sat in front, with another in the back watching their high-profile prisoner. Everything looked official, proper, by the book, right on schedule, Bishop said, tracking the van's progress through the city. They sat in their surveillance vehicle 3 blocks ahead of the transport's route. You sure about this? Calloway's too arrogant to go down quietly. Sully checked his weapon. He's already paid off the guards. Watch. Sure enough, the van deviated from its assigned route, turning down a quiet industrial street. Sully had chosen this location carefully. No working cameras, minimal traffic, plenty of shadows to hide whatever was about to happen. There's the signal, Bishop pointed out as the van's taillights flashed 3 times. Guards are giving the all-clear to Calloway's people. 3 black SUVs emerged from side streets, converging on the transport. Men with military-grade weapons poured out, surrounding the van. The guards stepped out, greeting them like old friends. That's Roberto's crew. Bishop identified them. Calloway's cartel connections. Must have cost him his last hidden millions to buy their help. Money well wasted. Sully started the engine. Call it in? Bishop picked up a secure phone. Federal Tactical Unit, green light. Suspect is attempting escape with armed assistance. You are clear to engage. The night erupted into chaos. FBI tactical teams appeared from every shadow, their vehicles blocking all escape routes. Gunfire shattered the quiet, bullets sparking off metal as Calloway's would-be rescuers found themselves caught in a perfect crossfire. Down! Bishop shouted as rounds peppered their vehicle. They're getting desperate. Through the windshield, Sully watched Calloway emerge from the transport van, trying to reach the nearest SUV. The former real estate mogul moved with the clumsy panic of a man and used to real violence. Cover me, Sully ordered, then slipped out of the vehicle that he moved through the gunfight like a ghost, using the chaos as cover. Calloway never saw him coming. One moment he was running for safety, the next he was sprawled on the pavement, Sully's knee in his back. Going somewhere? Sully growled, pressing his pistol against Calloway's head. Wait! Don't shoot! Calloway's voice was high with fear. I can pay you! Whatever you want! Still trying to buy your way out? Sully increased the pressure. Look around you. Your money's worthless. Your empire's gone. Even your wife sold you out. Please! Calloway was crying now, all his arrogance stripped away. I'll give you anything. You already gave me everything I wanted. Sully leaned closer. You helped destroy your own empire. Led your men into a trap. Died trying to escape justice. It's perfect. Died. Calloway's eyes widened with realization. No, wait. The gunshot was lost in the chaos of the firefight. When the federal teams finally secured the scene, they found Calloway's body where it fell, one more casualty of his failed escape attempt. Clean shooting, the FBI tactical commander told Sully later. He was resisting arrest, trying to escape. You had no choice. Of course. Sully holstered his weapon. I trust that will be in your official report. Already is. The commander smiled grimly. Along with commendations for your assistance in preventing the escape. Shame about the others, though. The others were scattered across the pavement. Roberto's entire crew, the corrupt guards, all of Calloway's last loyal soldiers. None had survived the crossfire back at their command center. Bishop was coordinating the aftermath. News is already hitting the wires. Crime lord dies in failed escape. Calloway's last stand ends in bloodshed. Front page stuff. What about our other problem? Harlan? Bishop pulled up a surveillance feed. Still in custody, but he's panicking. Keeps demanding protection, saying people are coming to kill him. He's right. Sully checked his watch. Give it another hour. The cartel. They don't appreciate being used as disposable pawns in an escape attempt, especially one that cost them so many men. You made sure they knew. Anonymous tip, along with proof that Harlan was the one who suggested using them as cannon fodder. Bishop whistled low. Damn, brother. You really don't leave any loose ends. Speaking of loose ends, Sully pulled up another file. What's our status at the detention center? Cecce's under increased security. After Calloway's death, she had some kind of breakdown. Keeps screaming that she's next, that everyone's betrayed her. Good. Fear makes people sloppy. makes them try desperate things. As if on cue, Bishop's phone buzzed. His eyebrows rose as he read the message. Well, seems Mrs. Calloway just tried to bribe a guard. Offered him $500,000 to help her escape. And guard reported it, of course. We made sure only our people were assigned to her section. Bishop looked up. You knew she'd try something like this. She's predictable. When manipulation fails, she tries to buy her way out. When that fails, he let the thought hang. You think she'll break? She's already breaking. All we have to do is wait. They didn't have to wait long. Just after dawn, another message came through. Celeste Calloway had been found in her cell, trying to open her wrists with a smuggled razor blade. She'll live, the prison doctor reported. But she's not stable. Keeps talking about ghosts and revenge, and how everyone betrayed her. Have her transferred to the psychiatric unit, Sully ordered. Maximum security. No visitors. Outside the detention center, the morning sun painted the world in harsh light. News vans were gathering, hungry for details about Calloway's death and his empire's final collapse. Where to now? Bishop asked as they got in their car. One last piece of business. Sully started the engine. Time to make sure none of this ever happens again. The call came at sunrise. Harlan Maddox was dead in his cell. No signs of struggle, no marks of violence. Just an empty pill bottle and a man who chose a coward's exit over facing his enemies. Cartel didn't even have to get their hands dirty, Bishop commented, reviewing the preliminary report. Fear killed him just as effectively. They sat in Lori's bar, closed to the public, while she cleaned up the damage from the previous night's incident. 3 of Calloway's former associates had tried to send a message. Instead, they'd learned exactly how dangerous a cornered ghost could be. You didn't have to help, Lori said, sweeping up broken glass. I could have handled it. Like you handled the last group? Sully nodded toward her bandaged knuckles. That was reckless, says the man who declared war on a crime empire. She stopped sweeping, leaned on the broom. Tell me something. After Harlan, after Calloway, after everything, is it enough? Are you satisfied? Before Sully could answer, Bishop's phone buzzed. His expression darkened as he read the message. We got movement. Calloway's international partners they're mobilizing. Seems they don't appreciate losing their investment. How many? Sully asked. At least 20 operators. Professional wetwork teams from 3 different organizations. They're hunting everyone connected to Calloway's fall. They'll come here first, Lori realized. The bar's a known connection. No, they won't. Sully stood. Because we're going to hunt them instead. Bishop pulled up surveillance feeds on his laptop. I've got eyes on their advance team. They're setting up in the warehouse district, using one of Calloway's old properties as a staging area. How do you want to play this? Lori asked. You're not involved, Sully said firmly. This isn't your fight. The hell it isn't. They came into my bar, threatened my people. I'm done sitting on the sidelines. Sully studied her for a long moment. The steel in her eyes reminded him why they'd been friends all those years ago. Fine, but you follow my lead. Bishop, what's their pattern? 3-man teams, rotating through the city. Looking for known associates, safe houses, anything that might lead them to us. They're thorough, professional, good. Sully checked his weapon. That means they're predictable. Show me their patrol routes. The next few hours were a brutal chess game played across the city. Sully's team moved like ghosts, striking and vanishing before their targets could respond. The first team went down in a parking garage, never seeing the ambush coming. The second fell in an abandoned office building, caught in their own crossfire. They're adapting, Bishop warned after the 4th engagement. Changing their patterns, getting more cautious. Let them. Sully reloaded his weapon. Fear makes them bunch up, makes them easier to find. 6 more headed toward the financial district, Lori reported, monitoring police frequencies. They're looking for the evidence servers. Too late for that. Sully smiled coldly. Everything's already been distributed to every law enforcement agency in 3 countries. The hunt continued through the day and into the night. The professional killers found themselves becoming prey, their sophisticated tactics useless against an enemy who knew every shadow, every corner, every escape route in the city. Last groups holed up in the high-rise, Bishop reported as midnight approached. 15th floor, standard defensive formation. They're waiting for extraction. No extraction coming? Lori asked. Their employers have written them off. After today's losses, it's cheaper to deny involvement. Sully checked his gear one last time. Bishop, take the service entrance. Lori, cover the garage. I'll go up through the main shaft. Sully. Lori caught his arm. These aren't thugs or corrupt businessmen. These are trained killers. So am I. He met her eyes. 3 years of preparation, remember? This is what all that training was for. The assault was swift, precise, and absolutely ruthless. Bishop's team cut off their escape routes while Sully moved through the building like a vengeful spirit. The professional killers found themselves trapped by someone who had studied their tactics, anticipated their responses, and turned their own methods against them. When it was over, Sully stood in the shattered office, surrounded by the results of his work. No survivors, no witnesses, no loose ends. Clear, Bishop reported through the radio. That's the last of them. Police response? Handled. Anonymous tip about corporate espionage gone wrong. They'll find evidence pointing to rival business interests. Sully looked out over the city through the broken windows. Somewhere out there, Cece was in her hospital cell, lost in the madness of her own betrayals. Calloway and Harlan were cold in the morgue, victims of their own choices. And now the last pieces of their empire had been erased. You okay? Lori asked quietly. I'm fine. He turned from the window. But we're not done yet. What's left? Bishop asked. Calloway's dead, his wife's broken, his empire's destroyed. Even his international connections are severed. One last thing. Sully checked his phone. The DA's office is preparing indictments against Calloway's political allies. Judges, officials, everyone who helped him build his power. The whole corrupt system, Lori realized. Exactly. By morning, half the city administration will be under federal investigation. The other half will be running for cover. They left the building as sirens approached, ghost quiet and invisible. The night had one more act to play out. One final scene in this tragedy of revenge and justice. Take me to the hospital, Sully ordered. I need to see her one last time. The psychiatric wing of the hospital was quiet at this hour. Antiseptic halls lit by harsh fluorescent lights. 2 guards stood outside Cece's room, handpicked by Bishop to ensure no messages got in or out. She's been asking for you, the lead nurse reported. Ever since they brought her in, keeps saying you're the only one who can understand. Has she said anything else? Mostly delusions. Talks about ghosts and revenge. About how everyone betrayed her. The nurse checked her charts. We had to sedate her twice when she became violent. Sully nodded. I need to see her. Alone. Sir, given her condition, it's fine, Bishop interrupted, showing his federal credentials. This is part of an ongoing investigation. The room was small, sterile, with a single bed bolted to the floor. Cece lay there, wrists restrained, staring at the ceiling. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, all her carefully constructed glamour stripped away. I knew you'd come, she said without looking at him. The ghost, returning to haunt me one last time. No ghosts, Cece. Just consequences. She laughed, a brittle sound like breaking glass. Consequences? Is that what you call this grand revenge of yours? This destruction of everything we built. Everything you built was based on lies. He moved closer to the bed. On betrayal and corruption and blood money. And you're so pure? Now she turned to face him, eyes fever bright. Look at what you've done. The people you've killed, the lives you've destroyed. You're just like us now. No, his voice was cold. I'm what you created. When you betrayed our marriage, when you chose power over loyalty, you started this. Everything that followed was your choice. My choice. She strained against the restraints. What choice did I have? You have no idea what it was like trying to survive in that world. Rhett was powerful, connected. He could give me everything I wanted. And now he's dead. His empire's destroyed. Everyone who helped him build it is either dead, in prison, or running for their lives. Sully leaned closer. That's what your choices bought you, Cece. A hospital bed and a broken mind. Kill me then. Her voice cracked. That's why you're here, isn't it? To finish what you started. No. Death would be too easy. He straightened up, You're going to live, Cece. Live with the knowledge that you helped destroy everything you wanted. That your ambition and greed brought down an empire. Tears streaked her face. I loved you once. Did you know that? In the beginning, before all of this, I really did love you. No, you didn't. You loved what I represented. Stability, respectability, a stepping stone to something bigger. He turned to leave. That's why you'll never understand what real loyalty means. Wait, she thrashed against the restraints. You can't leave me here. I'll tell them everything about the murders, the offshore accounts, all of it. Tell them whatever you want. Every word just proves your own guilt. He paused at the door. Goodbye, Cece. Try not to destroy whatever's left of your soul. Her screams followed him down the hallway, growing more hysterical until the nurses rushed in with sedatives. Bishop waited by the elevator, his expression grim. That's it then? It's over. Almost. Sully checked his phone. The federal indictments are going out now. Judges, politicians, everyone who enabled Calloway's empire. By morning, the whole corrupt system will be exposed. They drove through the quiet streets, past buildings that had once been part of Calloway's domain. Banks were foreclosing on his properties, investors were fleeing, and vultures were picking apart the corpse of his business empire. You know what's ironic? Bishop said as they stopped at a light. All those years Calloway spent building his power, buying influence, terrorizing anyone who stood against him. In the end, it was his own arrogance that brought him down. He never believed anyone could touch him. That's always their weakness. Sully watched the city scroll past. They think power makes them invulnerable. They forget that everyone bleeds. At the hotel, Lori was waiting with news. Just got word from my contacts in the DA's office. They're expanding the investigation to other cities. Seems Calloway's operation had tentacles everywhere. Good. Sully began packing his gear. Let them follow every lead, expose every connection. By the time they're done, none of it will matter. What do you mean? The evidence I gave them, it's like a virus. Every time they investigate one lead, it exposes 3 more. The corruption went deeper than anyone knew. Now it's all coming to light. Bishop whistled low. You're not just destroying Calloway's empire. You're burning down the whole system that allowed it to exist. That was always the plan. Sully checked his weapon one last time. Revenge isn't just about killing your enemies. It's about making sure they can never rise again. The first light of dawn was breaking over Texas, painting the sky in shades of fire. Somewhere in that brightening day, federal agents were serving warrants, prosecutors were filing charges, and the foundations of power were crumbling, but there was still one last piece of business to handle. One final act of justice to deliver. Where to? Bishop asked as they loaded the car. Sully's smile was cold as winter. Time to visit an old friend. Someone who helped Calloway hide his darkest secrets. Judge Michael Brennan's mansion stood on 5 acres of manicured lawn, a monument to corrupt power built with bribes and blood money. At this early hour, security was minimal. 2 guards patrolling the perimeter, basic alarm systems. Nothing that could stop what was coming. Targets in his study. Bishop reported from their surveillance position. Same routine every morning. Coffee, newspaper, pretending the world isn't falling apart around him. He knows it's coming. Sully checked his gear one last time. That's why he's been making calls all night, trying to move money offshore. You sure about this approach? We could just send the evidence to the feds. No. He's too connected, too protected. This needs to be personal. The guards never saw them coming. Silent takedowns, precise and professional. No blood, no noise. Just unconscious bodies hidden in the gardener's shed. The house's security system was next. Bishop's electronics making quick work of the outdated technology. Sully found Judge Brennan exactly where expected, sitting behind his massive oak desk, pretending to read the morning paper. The headline screamed about Calloway's empire crumbling, about federal indictments and exposed corruption. Your Honor. Sully's voice made the judge jump, spilling coffee across his desk. We need to talk. How did you? Brennan reached for his desk drawer, but Sully was faster. Looking for this? He held up the judge's personal firearm. I removed it earlier, along with the one in your bedroom and the shotgun in the hall closet. What do you want? Brennan's facade of judicial authority cracked, revealing the fear beneath. Just a conversation about choices. Sully sat across from him. About 20 years of taking bribes to protect Calloway's interests. About evidence that disappeared from police lockups. Witnesses who changed their testimony. Cases that mysteriously got dismissed. You have no proof. Actually, I do. Sully placed a USB drive on the desk. Everything's here. Bank records, recorded conversations, video of you meeting Calloway's bagman. Even that incident in Cancun with the underage girls. The blood drained from Brennan's face. Those records were destroyed. Calloway kept copies. Insurance, he called it, but he wasn't as careful with his security as he thought. Sully's smile was cold. Want to know what else he kept? The names of every judge, every official, every cop on his payroll. And now the feds have all of it. I'll be dead before it reaches court. Brennan's voice shook. Calloway's international partners, they'll never let me testify. Calloway's partners are dead. Their organizations are in chaos. There's no one left to protect you. As if on cue, Brennan's phone buzzed. He read the message, face crumpling. Federal agents. He whispered, "They're at my beach house, my winter home, everything being seized as evidence. Just like your accounts, your investments, everything you built with dirty money." Sully stood. "But that's not why I'm here." "Then why?" "Because of Maria Torres." The name hit Brennan like a physical blow. Oh, single mother, worked 3 jobs to support her kids. Filed a complaint against one of Calloway's development projects. Said they were forcing people out of their homes illegally. Case came before you 5 years ago. I don't remember. 2 days after you dismissed her case, she died in a random mugging. Her children went into foster care. Calloway's people bought her building the next week. Understanding dawned in Brennan's eyes. "You're going to kill me?" "No, that would be too merciful." Sully moved to the door. "In about 30 seconds, federal agents will come through your front gate. They have warrants for your arrest on multiple felony counts. You're going to surrender peacefully, and you're going to tell them everything. And if I don't, then the evidence goes to everyone. Press, social media, your family. Every dirty deal, every crime, every perversion you try to hide. Your children, your grandchildren, they'll all know exactly what kind of man you are." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Why?" Brennan asked, broken. "Why not just kill me?" "Because death is an escape. You don't deserve escape. You deserve to live with what you've done, to face the consequences of every life you helped destroy." Sully checked his watch. "Time to face justice, Your Honor." He was gone before the FBI tactical teams breached the gate, leaving behind a broken man and the evidence that would destroy him outside. Bishop and Lori waited in the car. "Judge is secure," Bishop reported. "Feds are taking him in now." "That's it then?" Lori asked. "The last piece." "Almost." Sully watched as more federal vehicles arrived. One more stop. They drove to McCabe's bar, now quiet in the early morning light. Inside, memories hung thick as smoke. Conversations, betrayals, the beginnings of paths that led to this moment. "What will you do now?" Lori asked as they stood at the bar one last time. "Disappear. For real this time." Sully poured 3 glasses of whiskey. "The ghost of Sullivan Cade has finished his work. They'll look for you," Bishop warned. "Federals, journalists, everyone will want to know the whole story. Let them look. The man they're searching for doesn't exist anymore. Never really did." They drank in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the sun was rising over Texas, painting the world in new colors. Somewhere in that brightening day, Cece lay in her hospital bed, lost in madness. Calloway's body waited in the morgue. Judges and corrupt officials were falling like dominoes as federal indictments spread through the city. "You could stay," Lori said quietly. "Help rebuild something better from the ashes." "No." Sully set down his glass. "Some ghosts need to fade away. Let the living handle what comes next." The goodbyes were brief. They'd all known this moment was coming. Bishop would return to his security business, using his skills to protect instead of destroy. Lori would keep running her bar, a neutral ground in whatever new order emerged from Calloway's fall and Sully. He walked out into the morning sun, leaving behind the weapon of vengeance he'd become. His revenge was complete, justice served cold and merciless. The corruption that had festered in the city's heart was exposed, its architects destroyed or imprisoned. He didn't look back as he drove east, toward the rising sun. The ghost of Vance Hollow had finished his work. Whatever came next would be written by other hands.